It's the fact that you've had guys that you didn't think were going to go to the league early that did, like Tony Bradley and Kobe White. And, I mean, that's where I think it's all just kind of starting to add up here. But the problem is that a lot of people just look at all the other teams around the country like Kentucky and Duke and think, well, since Carolina's got 2 guys on their roster that we thought coming into the season were one-and-dones, we should be clicking on all cylinders like a one-and-done team that we've seen before. And that's just not going to happen, especially for a team that has been run just so differently over the past few seasons. And, I mean, you brought up a great point. I think this, and we talked about this earlier in the regular season. For these people that wanted to say, oh, I want to go to the one-and-done style, I want to get this talent, yeah, you look like an idiot now. Yeah, that's not working. That's just not working for this.
This program it's not built to function that way.
And that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no.
Maybe these people aren't. I'm good.
Roy Williams, since he came back, says, look, I love talent, but I like experienced talent better than talent. And Carolina right now lacks talent, and they lack experienced talent. And that's because you didn't expect Tony Bradley to leave early. You didn't expect Kobe White to leave early. You didn't expect to not have Jalik Felton, or you didn't. Yeah, I mean, Nazir Little we kind of thought would be one and done, but
Seventh Woods is huge again. We got to mention that. Like
the attrition to this roster that wasn't expected really put this team or the program in a bind in the offseason when Kobe declared and Nazir declared, and you were losing. And I talked to my dad about this the other day. When you lose Cam Johnson, Luke May, and Kenny Williams, and look, Cam Johnson was an all-ACC guy. Kenny Williams and Luke May were guys that really, they earned it, everything that they got.
You don't win a national championship without those two.
Their leadership was more valuable than how many points they scored, how many rebounds they pulled down. Carolina doesn't have a leader. And you can maybe say Cole Anthony was the leader before he got hurt, but it wasn't legitimate leadership. Garrison Brooks is probably the guy that this team looks to, but Garrison's a quiet leader. And, you can't make a guy – It's not like every time – you're not going to get Tyler Hinsbury every time you get a guy that walks in as an 18-year-old kid and leads. That's not in Garrison's blood. Now, if some of the players just followed his effort, Carolina probably doesn't lose 3 straight games. If they gave it as much as he cared, they probably don't lose. But he's not the kind of guy to start yelling at him when stuff goes wrong. And Roy Williams can only do that. He can only do it so much because the frustration level has now reached a boiling point with the Hall of Fame head coach because he doesn't know. He's dumbfounded himself because this just hasn't happened. Not even in 2010. That team was just young. They had some injuries. But this team's an enigma. The inability to do back-to-back good things is mind-blowing. It's, one possession they look like a team that can play at the ACC and compete, and the next level you're letting Clemson drive the ball on you like it's no problem. And in this loss, look, you've got to give Clemson credit. Amir Sims was a problem all night long. Carolina had a hard time matching him because he was a space guy that could step out and hit the three. That's always gives us problems. But a lot of it was just our lack of competitive fortitude to just there. How many times did we let a guy just walk into the rim and lay the ball in? Or how many times did we just lose communication and allow an open 3-point shot?
Yeah, Leaky Black just
it's game
awful.
It's game 16.
Awful day defensively.
Roy Williams shouldn't have to tell you what to do 40 minutes. That's the thing about basketball that makes it what it is that it's a sport that isn't controlled by coaches 9 times out of 10. And maybe at the mid-major level. This is where you pretty much have the freedom to go play. He's going to call a play. He'll call a set. He'll call a timeout. But it's all on you to execute. And this team isn't executing. A stat that proves that this is a season out of the norm for Carolina. You had 9 offensive rebounds, which isn't bad, not great, but you only scored 8 points off of those offensive rebounds. You averaged less than a point per rebound. I have stressed all year long that this team has got to live and die on second chance points. When they've put the ball back in the basket on second chance points, they win ball games. They had 4 fast break points, and some of it is you're without your 3 point guards. Cole Anthony, Jeremiah Francis, and Anthony Harris all didn't dress. But still, you would still expect more than 4 fast break points in a Carolina game at home against Clemson.
Especially when you have 8 steals in the game as well. That's what's kind of shocking to me. You got them to turn the ball over and weren't able to capitalize on the other end. There's a lot of things that you just talked about there that are great things to touch on. One of the things that it must be pointed out, I don't know if anybody goes and listens to the midweek stuff that Roy does and everything like that, listens to the radio show. They think, the thing is, he doesn't make adjustments. He hasn't made adjustments with this team all year. Why does he need to make adjustments when he's telling us literally every single time that he does an interview or is doing his radio show, the team looks the part in practice, but when they get out on the floor, they just don't look the part. How can you correct something that looks so good in practice? That's what I just don't understand. If they're doing the stuff in practice, what are you going to do? Turn around and say, you're doing that right, but let's not go with that. Let's go with something else. It's just, I don't understand what happens when they get on the court. All of a sudden, things just start to break down, and I just, it doesn't make sense. But that's where I'm trying to point out the fact that it's not all on Roy Williams. You pointed it out earlier. The coaching staff is going to get some blame, and rightfully so, because you're coaching this team. That's 8-8. But at the same time, to think that Roy is the only problem or even the biggest problem is just ludicrous.
It's laughable.
No way.
He mentioned after the Pitt loss, we put in 2 new offenses, and you couldn't tell because it didn't work. And so he's tinkering. Do I think he should maybe play zone a little bit more? I do. Do I think he should press a little bit more? I do. But I also understand he's not going to, because he doesn't believe in that. And you're not going to change your belief system after 32 years. And what's gotten you to 879 wins, 9 Final Fours, and 3 national titles. And if any fan thinks that's what should be done, you're not smart. And quite frankly, you shouldn't be allowed to have an opinion, because that's not going to happen. He has told you that over and over again, that he is not going to change. His stubbornness is a big part of why Carolina's lost a handful of games. But his stubbornness is also why Carolina is also the premier basketball program in college basketball. And you have to balance those two things when it comes to how Roy Williams handles situations. And look, for people to think that he doesn't care, the man's beat to hell in every press conference because he doesn't know what to do. Because he's pulling all the stops.
Right.
And it's January, and he's running out of answers. That doesn't happen here, ever. Even when you flame out in the tournament like this team has done the last 2 years, a lot of times you just ran into a better opponent that day. Right now, it's not. He's trying to adjust. They're just not capable of adjusting to the coaching to get the job done. And it's completely torpedoed a season. There's a lot of questions regarding how the rest of this year goes. If Cole Anthony comes back, what's the point? And I think the best way to chalk it up is it's a lost season. It's a season that when we look back on it in 2 to 3 years from now, and we're back in the Final Four and we're competing to cut down the nets in March, we won't even remember it. But I've stressed this enough on Twitter, on Facebook, and in the articles and on this podcast. The fact that 8-8 has us riled up, and it's got us all emotional, and it's causing me to lose sleep, shows you just how good we got it. There are 10 teams in this conference that would kill to be 8-8 through 16 games almost every year. And then here it's not acceptable. It's not good enough. And I've said that a lot. This team should be in a position to win a national title every year, go to the Final Four. It's not realistic. It's this as wide open as this sport is. That's not a realistic expectation. But to think that the program is done and Roy Williams has lost it over one bad year, think about what all happened from 2011 to 2019. You went to 4 Elite Eights, you went to 6 Sweet 16s, you went to 2 Final Fours, and you won a national championship. I can live with that to have 1 year where I don't make the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up everything that pretty much I've been saying on social media. Just last year, this was a guy that won 16 games for the first time ever at Carolina. First team ever to win 16 conference games, and shared the league title with the eventual national champions, the Virginia Cavaliers. So, I mean, to think that all of a sudden he has just forgotten how to coach. He's losing it. I just don't understand why this dumbass fan base has to do this all the time. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't care anymore, because this is every time, and I am sick and tired of it, and it makes me sick to my stomach that I got to get on here every freaking year and do this with this fan base. You have one of the greatest coaches in the history of sport on your sideline every time you take the floor. And no matter what, every single year we have this period where we have to repeatedly defend this man over and over again. This guy is considered by many, including the supposed Carolina hater, Dickie V, as one of the 4 greatest coaches ever in college basketball. You jackasses. So, I don't understand why it's so hard to trust him. And we talked about this last night. If you see it anywhere on social media, whenever you get into an argument with a Duke fan, with Syracuse fans, any of these fan bases that have historic head coaches like Roy is, they will defend them until the end. You bring up the back injury to a Duke fan, they will tell you, are you kidding me? They'll say a cat jumped on his back and that's what caused it. It was a legitimate injury. They'll make something up because they support their coach no matter what. And honestly, at this point, I have to hand it to them, because I just don't understand why our fan base can't be like that. What has this man done to take this trust away from you?
He won 3 national championships, which is more than Dean Smith.
It doesn't matter.
He's going to pass Dean Smith on the all-time wins list.
I'm going to be honest, that is complete bullcrap. That is, I don't care if you don't like Roy because you honestly think that there's a chance that he could be better than Dean, which we're not going to get into that because that's a whole podcast series of like 6 weeks breaking down one specific part of their resume. I don't understand why people think that way. Like, why can't we just be happy that we've had both of these guys and not criticize either one of them? Because I feel like telling people, you didn't criticize Dean Smith like this, did you? I don't understand. Roy has reached that point where he should be not beyond criticism. I understand there will be times, because they still do it with Kay and Calipari, where guys will question, why didn't you call timeout or something like that? But, I mean, damn it, people. Can we get to a point where we can at least go a season without having to go on the timeline and see it's time to fire Roy? This old man is losing it, because I'm losing my damn mind. I am over this. I am done with this. It is ridiculous. This man deserves the respect. I mean, it's just, at this point, I am sick and tired of this stupid fan base having these moronic fans that want to tell us every time we lose a game, oh man, this dude just ain't got it anymore. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. If there's anybody that's going to get this season back on track, I've told you 1,000 times, it's Roy Williams. And if you don't believe that, well, then congratulations. You're an idiot.
I think that's the perfect way to shut this down, because I can't follow that, because I echo that. And
I wanted to ask you a couple of questions just generally about the team. Is this the worst team right now in the ACC? Legitimate question right now as we sit here. Is this the worst team in the ACC?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'd have to agree with that, unfortunately. Do you think Cole Anthony comes back and plays another game in a Carolina uniform?
I think he does. I don't think he should.
Okay. That's, I mean,